Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. I want to preface this video by saying that my allergies are killing me today. I am heavily medicated, but if I sound stuffy or I'm sniffling a lot, I apologize. I'll try to edit it out as much as I can, but no guarantees I'll get it all. I'm dying. Anyway, today I wanted to do a video about one of my most recent favorite series, and that is the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. I have been extolling the virtues of this series forever, it feels like, and I'm just trying to get everyone I know on BookTube to read it that hasn't read it, so I wanted to make a video on why you should read it. So this is a 4-book series, the first being Gideon the Ninth, then Harrow the Ninth, then Nona the Ninth, then Alecto the Ninth. Only the first 3 are out so far, and I do not believe there's a release date yet for Alecto the Ninth, but I believe I saw on Twitter that there were some people already getting the arc for Alecto the Ninth, so I think that it will be next year sometime, I hope. Unless that was pure rumor that I heard and is completely false, not sure. But very excited for that 4th book to come out. I have read Gideon 3 times, I've read Harrow twice, and I've read Nona once. I'm hoping to do another reread probably early next year, just because when you're reading these books, it's like you pick up on so much every reread, which I will get into more later, but I would love to annotate them. However, I do not have any of my copies right now because I've lent them all out. Again, trying to proselytize everyone I know to read the Locked Tomb. So first, a synopsis. The Emperor needs necromancers. The 9th necromancer needs a swordswoman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead bullshit. Brought up by unfriendly, ossifying nuns, ancient retainers, and countless skeletons, Gideon is ready to abandon a life of servitude and an afterlife as a reanimated corpse. She packs up her sword, her shoes, and her dirty magazines, and prepares to launch her daring escape. But her childhood nemesis won't set her free without a service. Harrowhark Nona Gestimus, Reverend Daughter of the 9th House and Bone Witch Extraordinaire, has been summoned into action. The Emperor has invited the heirs of each of his loyal houses to a deadly trial of wits and skill. If Harrowhark succeeds, she will become an immortal, all-powerful servant of the resurrection, but no necromancer can ascend without their cavalier. Without Gideon's sword, Harrow will fail and the 9th House will die. Of course, some things are better left dead. So, that's the basic premise. It's really an incredibly hard series to explain because you really don't get it, even after you've read it. So that is kind of the first point I want to make, is that the plot is incredibly confusing, but it is so intentionally confusing. And it is masterfully crafted where Tamsin Muir is leaving these little breadcrumbs for you that kind of lead up to these big reveals at the end of each book. And they just knock your socks off. They are stunningly executed, and so much of each book is just kind of you're along for the ride because it's almost impossible to guess. Not impossible, I've seen some people guess some pretty big points, but as most of you know that have watched any of my channel, I am kind of a brainless reader. I like to go into books and not try to guess what's going to happen because I like to be surprised, so I don't try to theorize and figure out what's going to happen next. So with these, I had no idea the surprises were coming, and they were phenomenal. The payoff was great, especially in Harrow the Ninth. Harrow the Ninth has probably the most confusing of plots. For the first 70%, you honestly just do not know what's going on. You don't know where all the characters you were with the first book have gone. You don't know what's happening, but it's incredible. And then the payoff for that confusion is just heartrending and beautiful and funny, and it's just amazing. So the plot itself is just so unique. It's like nothing I've ever read. It's set in space. It's very sci-fi, but it's also very fantasy because there's this necromantic magic and stuff. So overall, the whole plot is just so unique. It's unlike anything I've ever read before. I will say that I'm going to be saying the word unique quite a bit in this video probably because, again, these books are just literally nothing I've ever read. And I feel like for the next jillion years, I will just be searching for the high I got while reading these books. Not that I haven't read other great books this year. These are just so different from anything I've ever read that I don't know if I will ever get this feeling again, but I hope I do because these books, man, phenomenal. So basically, the plot of each book transforms. Like, we change setting drastically for each book, and we change some of the characters of each book. Not all of them. There are certain characters that travel throughout all 3 books, but there's a lot of just very confusing plots and very confusing settings. But again, masterfully confusing, because you get to find out more and more each book. Like in Nona the Ninth, the last one that just came out recently, we got a lot of lore and backstory for a lot of the stuff that happened in the second book. And so, again, you don't get the payoff instantly. This is not an instant gratification series. There's still so much left unresolved that I'm hoping is wrapped up nicely in Alecto, because there's so much that goes on that you understand what's going on. A lot of it is the why it's going on. Like, it's not that reading it, you don't actually know what they're doing. You get what they're doing. You don't know why, and you don't know, like, the context for what they're doing. And a lot of that, you get payoff as you go. But a lot of it is still unresolved at the end of Nona, which, I mean, the series isn't over, so that's fine. And it's just something that you have to be patient with, but that the payoff is just like chef's kiss phenomenal, because the way Tamsin Muir takes you from point A to point B to point C is just like, it's masterful. Like, I would love to see Tamsin Muir's outlining for this series, because, like, going back and rereading Gideon, she tells you, like, right at the beginning of Gideon, some of the big reveals. Like, it's just the way it's phrased, you don't really pick up on it. You think it's just, like, part of the prose, I guess, and part of, like, the Ninth House itself. But, like, so much she has dropped breadcrumbs from the very beginning of the books. And it's just, like, so beautiful. And it's, I can't even imagine what planning this series is like. Now for the characters, which are some of my favorite parts of the books, but I'm a character-driven reader, so that is to be expected. First, Tamsin Muir's writing is so funny. All of her dialogue cracks me up, even in some of the more touching moments. I'm still laughing while also maybe crying, because she does heartbreaking and heart-wrenching moments so well. And I think it's kind of that dichotomy of a character being so serious and so thoughtful and heartfelt, juxtaposed with them 5 minutes ago making a joke about boobs. So it's just like that beautiful weaving of storytelling and narrative and dialogue that Tamsin Muir does that just brings these characters to life. All of the characters feel very well developed, and if they don't feel well developed, it feels very intentionally undeveloped, because you get the idea that they will be developed better later, and a lot of times they are. So there's so much about these characters that we just don't really understand. We can't put our finger on why they're acting this way or why they're doing what they're doing. And then you get this payoff that is just, like, amazing. I'm thinking specifically of one of the characters in Harrow the Ninth. They are doing this one thing throughout the whole book, and their goal is to do this one thing, and you really don't understand why until the big reveals at the end, and you're like, okay, this is all making sense now. And then when you go back and reread it, you see all these clues that Tamsin Muir had been leaving along the way to get you to think this, and it's amazing. So many of these characters have their own, like, very confusing backstories and stuff that you slowly get more information on as you go, which, again, masterfully crafted. Tamsin Muir also has, like, a mastery, again, unique and masterful are words I'm going to say a lot, and I apologize, but Tamsin Muir has a mastery of relationships as well. All of the relationships in these books feel very relatable while also completely unrelatable. And I know that sounds like it makes no sense, but when you read it, you might understand what I'm trying to say. All of her relationships, whether they be romantic or not, or siblings or not, she does it in a way that just feels so deep while also being, like, understandable. All of the different character interactions between, like, all of the interpersonal relationships, like the spider web they create, is just so well thought out, because one character will see a different character this way, and a different character will see them a completely different way, and it still makes complete sense. And the way characters interact with each other is different between characters. And it all just makes so much sense, especially when you get the big reveals and maybe something that was confusing you is finally kind of figured out. But then like you'll figure out something about a character and then everything you've thought has been turned on its head. And it's just, again, the payoffs that you get for these character arcs is just chef's kiss, because it's unparalleled. Not going to get too deep into this. One of the best characters I've ever read in fiction is John, who you aren't introduced to until the second book. And that's all I'll say, because I don't want to spoil anything. But John is phenomenally crafted. But that's not to say that the other characters aren't, because they also all are. Gideon, Harrow, Ianthe, Camilla, Palamedes, they all have such unique, different personalities, but also beautiful and understandable, and you just want to root for all the characters, even the ones you hate. Like Ianthe, I love to hate her. I love to hate her so much. She's incredible in the worst ways. I have mentioned this before in other videos, but Gideon has 1000% influenced one of my main D&D characters I play. And she is one of my favorite characters in fiction. John is probably one of the most well-written characters in fiction I've read. Gideon is one of my favorite of all time, just because I love her so much. She's so relatable and down to earth, especially compared to like Harrow or Ianthe, like some of these other like very strange, ethereal people. Gideon feels very grounded and very funny and very relatable and very just fun. She's just a fun character to read. She's a fun character to root for, and I love her very much. Now for the prose. Tamsin Muir's prose, again, is very unique from any prose I've ever read. Her settings, for the most part, are all very dark and dreary, and they feel just like dirty. And she really does an incredible job of portraying that. Like the characters themselves, there's a lot of like body horror, but not like really graphic, nasty body horror, but more like when Harrow does necromancy, that's like really tough on her. She'll like bleed out of her eyes. But like the way she just describes all of this, like characters are always grimy and sweaty, and the settings they're in are always grimy and wet and dirty. And she really makes you like feel that. Everything feels just like a little bit gross. And it's beautiful. It's phenomenally written to where I'm just like, that's nasty. Dope. Like, this is cool. So she just has such a way with words where, again, all of the prose feels very digestible. It's always funny. The dialogue is hilarious, but also it's so atmospheric and so understandable. It doesn't feel like she's trying to like gatekeep this this dialogue and this prose from you. Like she's making it accessible, but also very good. Lastly, I want to talk about the fandom. I don't talk about fandoms a lot because I try not to get too deep into a lot of fandoms because so much of the time they're just very toxic. But the Locked Tomb fandom is honestly phenomenal. I mean, of course, there's going to be some outliers. It's a fandom. Again, toxicity is prevalent in all fandoms. But from, especially like on Twitter, a lot of the people I see that have like Locked Tomb Twitters, they are very accepting, and it's just like, all of it is just like amazing fan art and amazing theories. As soon as I finished None of the Ninth, I went on Twitter and I looked up None of the Ninth spoilers hashtag, and the different theories that people have are just like, they blow my mind because so many readers are way smarter than me. And it's very, very prevalent when I go on Twitter and I see these fan theories, and I love it because like there's all these different theories and all of these deep explanations for how they got there. And it just, again, shows even more how good Tamsin Muir's writing is and how deep these books go. There's so many like biblical ties, and there's so much foreshadowing, and there's so much like, there's hidden ciphers, like just the planning and the execution of the series and how well put together it is is, again, something I have not seen in fiction yet. Doesn't mean it's not out there. I haven't read all books, but this series is just on another level of like how much theorizing there can be and how much foreshadowing and how much like unknowns there are out there. I have a bookstagrammer friend who, her and I will just message each other all of these fan theories and just like go on and on about it. Like, and it's just so fun. So that is the end of this video. I hope by now I have convinced you to read The Locked Tomb. Please be patient with it because I promise the payoffs are worth it. I would say if you read Gideon and enjoy it, but you're kind of like, I'm not 100% sold, read Harrow. Read Harrow all the way through. If you're not liking it after Harrow, don't read Nona. Not worth it. But if you get to that end and you feel that like gratification of the payoffs at the end of Harrow, read Nona because, man, it goes off the rails. I mean, every book is off the rails. So I highly encourage you to give this series a try. They aren't super long books. Take your time with them though. The first time I read Gideon, I listened to it as an audiobook and I didn't really like it because I just didn't know what was going on. So I highly encourage you to either immersion read or just read it physically for your first time and then go back and listen to the audiobooks because the audiobook narrator is amazing. It's just the content of the books is very confusing and I feel like reading it physically, at least for me, was much easier to digest than when I listened to it. But then when I went back and listened to it, things were clicking. So highly recommend reading it physically for the first time if you can. If not, the audiobooks are still amazing, so still worth it. Overall, this has quickly taken over my life. Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, Nona the Ninth, they are my entire personality, and I love this series. So please read it, and then message me about it, and I will talk your ear off. I will send you all the fan theories. Just read this series. I promise. I can't promise. I don't know your reading tastes. I think most people will really enjoy this series. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below if you've read The Locked Tomb or if I have convinced you to read The Locked Tomb. Also, let me know if you have any recommendations for books with similar vibes or similar kind of plotting, I guess. Again, gonna continually be looking for the high I got reading these books. If you really like my content, please hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post new videos. As always, your support means the world to me, and until next time, thank you guys.